Welcome, heathens and witches, to the Horn
and Cauldron
podcast. Yeah, I'm John Norgrove. This is Julie Norgrove. We're here to spread some witchy knowledge, spread the good news of the witchcraftery, or what have you. I don't know how to say that. I gotta come up with like a fun catchphrase for this, like what with some of the other podcasters have.
Or it's just crazy.
Or it's just crazy
and a little
every
insane
time.
every time.
That's fine also.
Which is basically the vibe that we're
That's
running.
fine. Yeah,
just
hey.
like crazy and a little bit
Just be a
insane.
little crazy. It's fine. Yeah. Oof, boy, Lucy. Yeah. Either way, welcome to this episode of Horn and Cauldron podcast.
Yep,
if
yep.
you are listening to this on YouTube, or I guess watching this on YouTube because YouTube is one with videos and such, thank you for looking at our silly faces. Don't forget to like this video, comment below, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the stuff that every one of us tells you to do.
And if you're listening to us on a podcast network, be sure to leave us a review. That is the way that other people help to hear us also. So share us with people. Share us with your friends. Share us with your enemies, maybe.
If you're looking for a little more
Send
of
them a
us,
message.
follow us on all of the social medias. I'm at Jive everywhere. I've got all of them, and she's at Goddess Jules everywhere. She also, got all of them.
That's right.
So
mostly Instagram and TikTok.
Mostly Instagram and TikTok.
It's been a busy few weeks, but I'm hoping to get back into a regular schedule of posting new little bite-sized videos soon.
Yeah.
This is not our day job, unfortunately.
No.
So sometimes our day jobs get in the way.
Speaking of making it our day job, why not support us on Patreon? Smooth transition.
Ooh, that was nice. We did not.
It's not nice
that.
if you recognize it.
Yeah, it would have been way more smooth if you didn't say anything.
Hey, honestly, I'm surprised that I even remembered to do it. But if you would like to support more witchy stuff like this, or gain access to the Book of Shadows pages, support us on Patreon. We would like to give a thank you shout out to our patrons. First thing, that's Alan, Miranda, Helena, Mackenzie, and Alexa. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank
you're
you
the best.
for helping us do what we do and a little bit better every time.
Yeah, you're the best. We're learning and growing. Let's see what else. And let's get into it. Yeah.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Yeah.
So this episode is the best holiday of the year. My favorite holiday, like ever since I was a kid. Yeah. Technically Halloween, but we are talking about Samhain today. Yeah. So as part of our Sabbath 101 series, this is Samhain 101, so we're going to be talking some basics about Samhain. So Samhain is the third and final harvest festival. It takes place on October 31st. Technically, this one goes from sundown October 31st to sundown on November 1st. But much like with everything else, whenever we tell you about this stuff, I mean, if you can't do it on the 31st and you can only do it on the 30th, like we're doing
we're going to do it on the 30th,
or you can't do it until a week
on a
after,
Sunday,
then, like, do it then. No one is out there policing you, saying you can't do, you have to do Samhain on
and if they are, don't listen to them. That's dumb.
Yeah, and for those of you listening in the Southern Hemisphere, that
Good
date
luck.
is April 30th. Yeah, good luck.
I don't know how time works south of the equator. And I know toilets flow backwards, and even that might be a lie. The 90s, honestly, a lot of the shit that I learned as a kid in the 90s, I'm starting to find out was a lie. Or a half truth. So
I think that's wrong. So I think the coolest part about this one for the Southern Hemisphere means they basically get 2 Halloweens, because they celebrate Halloween on Halloween, if that particular country celebrates Halloween, right?
Yeah, like
and
Australia
then
probably celebrates Halloween.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Any Australians out there? Tell us.
Yeah, if you're Australian, tell us if you celebrate Halloween in October or in like April.
And then I think that it would probably be October, right? But like if you're in the Southern Hemisphere and you're doing Halloween and Samhain, then you could basically celebrate twice.
Yeah. Well,
so it's
I guess
Halloween and like half.
It's got to be in like. In my mind, it would be in April, because April would be going into fall. And, like, flower Halloween, regardless of the fact that it sounds gangster.
I feel like springtime Halloween sounds rad.
Yeah, springtime Halloween sounds rad, but, like, it's not all pumpkins and ghosts and like,
I'm sure it's
days.
pumpkins and ghosts, maybe a less pumpkin spice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about Halloween in the Southern Hemisphere. If you're from there, or if you have experience with that would be super interesting. We all want to learn, so sharing is caring.
Right.
Like, do that.
Yeah. Now, October 31st was picked because it is a date that is about halfway between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice. It's not like the ancients had a calendar and they're like, October, hey, look, tomorrow is ye old October 31st. Time to do the Samhain.
Old-timey Apple Watches and whatnot.
That's not how that worked. So they just kind of picked a day that worked for them. And Samhain really is the most popular and widely known pagan holiday, thanks to a ton of mentions in movies and books and TV and a variety of other pop culture things. I think the earliest thing that I was subjected to that was like Samhain related, like specifically Samhain and not like witches, Halloween, was Halloween 3, because Halloween 3 is like the Samhain
is the
Halloween.
like witchy Halloween movie.
Yeah. And that one is filmed just a few hours north of us, which is pretty dope.
I guess.
Although the movie itself, not super great.
I don't know that like, to me there's always been the like undertone of paganality or heathenry to Halloween.
Yeah.
But like, and we've talked about this before. I didn't really have like a broom closet.
Yeah.
Quotes that I had to be in. Bloody making hand quotes to a podcast, guys. It's been a great day already. So, but like, yeah, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I probably didn't know that it was called Samhain for a long time, and I certainly didn't call it Samhain for a long time. Right. You know, so there's that difference.
Yeah.
But, that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, historically, Samhain
Halloween's kind of always been. It's Halloween. Halloween. We're gonna do trick or treating at the church, and you're like, yeah, pagan shit at a church. That works out all the time. Whatever, you know.
Yeah. Well, historically, Samhain was really only celebrated in certain areas in the UK.
Yeah.
So it's a very Celtic type of festival.
Samhain is sort of like I would almost say that Halloween is the most generalized term or like normalized term.
Yeah.
And Samhain is like pretty commonly referred to for the thing. And man, I did not look it up beforehand, but there is a name for the Norse holiday. I will look it up on my phone while we are sitting here talking. While you're talking, but I know the Norse blot has a different name than Samhain.
Yeah. Well,
but what it is exactly, man,
there are other cultures in a variety of places around the world that celebrate something like what we know today as Halloween or Samhain. We're not going to be particularly talking about those, but we will be talking about those in the future so that we can kind of hone in on what other people are doing, kind of like what we did with the Mabon 101 post. So the cool thing about this is another really, really old kind of a celebration. So there are some Neolithic passage tombs that are aligned with the sunrise on what we now know as October 31st. And we talk a lot about passage tombs and that sort of thing in our episode 5, which deals with Imbolc. It's pretty interesting. Basically, they are earthen structures that have a entrance, and the entrance has a very specific orientation to the sun, and when the sun rises on that specific day, it illuminates the shaft of like the hallway, the entrance shaft, of these passage tombs but only for like a very specific time. And we're not even entirely sure what these passage tombs were for. We have found some that people were buried in, but we've also found some that nobody at all ever was probably buried in. So those date back as far back as like 10,000 BC. The Neolithic period went from 10,000 to 4,500 BC. So, I mean, that's like thousands of years people have been celebrating a festival around this time of year, which I think is really cool. Although the first mention of Samhain is from the 1st century BCE in the Gaulish Coligny calendar. They mention a particular date that seems to coincide with a month that seems to coincide with Samhain. It's ancient stuff. It's all very weird. It all gets very weird. But in the 9th century Common Era, the Christianization of Europe was happening. Drinking game. There you guys can make your drink. We will do the same.
Yeah. Mulled wine. We made mulled. She made mulled wine.
I made mulled wine just for this.
I set up cameras and lights and dialed in color tonality and
I got to play with kitchen witchery.
Potentially this isn't gonna look good, so
yeah.
maybe you're welcome. I don't know until I'm done editing it, which is kind of a nightmare to record like a single stop, like hour and a half.
This is something
This is the first time we've ever done it. Like full trust that Jonathan knows how he set stuff up properly. So
let's hope. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So in the 9th century Common Era, the Christianization of Europe was pretty much in full swing, and they syncretized the holiday, meaning they brought the pagan holiday in line with the more Christian holidays, and essentially renamed it into All Saints and All Souls Day, and sort of had it be 2 of those. And we're not going to talk too much about those. That's for a future episode. But it has been celebrated for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
What was the name of the Norse?
So the Norse holiday is Alfablot, which is the sacrifice to the elves. And this is generally happens between like the autumnal equinox and the winter solstice. So obviously it happens around Halloween. Generally it's a 3-day thing, so it's like the 28th through the 1st of November.
Yeah.
And we always do that. I have ritual for this, but it's one of those things that like I just haven't pulled it out. We've been busy. I was literally like working in the rain all day. So, because we're having like a bunch of downpour, and I'm just like, I gotta get stuff cleaned up. So I was working in the yard in the rain all day. Didn't have a chance to do any of that research. But yeah. So and we've celebrated Alphablot before when we have our
Sabbats.
Our Sabbats. Yeah. So yeah, definitely. So there is, just because it's not like Alphablot isn't well known celebration, like within our friend group, if I said like we're having Alphablot celebration, they would be like, oh, what the fuck is that, right? But like Samhain is like the most known version of saying it, so we say like we're having a Samhain ritual and Halloween party, like when we're hosting a thing, you know, so that way like everybody kind of understands what we're doing. And of course, like we, you know, like if people don't want to participate in the ritual portion or whatever, like that's fine. We're not like you know, force people to do things our way. Mm-hmm. In fact, we celebrate differently. She does her Samhain thing, and then I do my Alphablot thing, and then she finishes up the Samhain thing. Yeah. And like we're probably just gonna set up tables outside and carve pumpkins with like power tools, you know,
or paint them,
or whatever, for the season. So like you can always kind of mix and match stuff that fits your, like, sort of community group.
Yeah, because who doesn't want to do, like, some witchy shit and also a craft? Like, as an adult,
and we're hanging out
all
with
I want to
friends
do is crafts.
We're
I mean,
watch
as a kid, all I want to do is crafts, too.
We're going to watch probably, like, the Creepshow series or something. We'll put on something that can, like, last all day.
Yeah, or something, like, fairly...
Yeah. Innocuous.
Fairly innocuous. We are huge horror movie connoisseurs, but we have a lot of friends who are not super
who are like, oh, what is
horror.
that? What is that, horror comedy? I don't know about that. It's pretty spoopy. And you're just like, no, we watch all of them.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's pretty cool that Alphablot is like a ritual where you basically sacrifice to the elves.
Yeah.
Because really, sort of the main theme about Samhain is that it is a liminal festival. The veil is thin at this time of year. You hear that often. Yeah. And elves in the Norse tradition can be likened, although they are not direct, like, translations of the Fae and more Celtic type of things. And as our 5 listeners know, I am huge into working with the Fae. So it was believed that during this time of year, the boundary between this world and the spirit world, or the Fae world, or both worlds, is thin. And this makes it so it's easier to communicate with the dead and spirits and deities and the Fae. Add that into the time of year that this is in the northern hemisphere, where, you know, it's fall and summer is gone, but you can still feel like its essence. You know, you like... in the morning have to have a coat, and then midday it's hot, and then you're like, what the hell? And then by the time it's evening, you're like, it's cold again. I'm turning on the heater for the first time in the, you know, during the summer, like that kind of thing. So you're really sort of experiencing the dying of summer. And I think that definitely lends to it, wanting to cozy up and having dark be, you know, having the daytime be so short and having nighttime be so long, definitely all help to this. It was believed that that the dead would visit their old homes during this time of year, as well as that the fae would come and have parties and troop through the house. So there's a lot of sort of traditions that deal with that. One of the ones that I do not recommend is an older Celtic tradition of leaving your doors unlocked, so that way if the fae are dancing around in the middle of the night, they can just like open your door and then go through your house and then go the door. We don't live in a time where it's safe to keep your doors unlocked.
Yeah, don't unlock
so
your doors.
don't do that one.
Yeah.
But one that you can do is what's called a mute dinner or a dumb supper. So it was a pretty common practice, knowing that the dead were going to be like wandering around, potentially visiting their old places that they lived. Yeah, faffing about, tinkering, puttering around. So people would, like set their table and they would leave a whole like seat. So a chair and a placemat and plates and the whole shebang. And then they would also plate out a dinner for the dead. So a full plate of food, and then just leave that at the table, not only while you're eating, but generally after you're eating, and you throw it out in the morning so that if there are any ancestors or other spirits that come to visit, they would have something to sustain themselves. So essentially it's good hospitality. If guests are coming, get some sort of snack prepared, basically. And prepare a snack for the dead. But like not doing this would also generally mean that you would be angering those spirits, and that could mean bad luck for the coming winter. I don't think the spirits are quite so concerned about that. But it is definitely a fun thing to do. And when you think about it, if you leave out offerings, particularly those on an altar, it's not far off from doing that. It's just sort of like, and taking what you do regularly by leaving like offerings on an altar and then amping that up by a couple of notches. You're setting a table, you're placing the linens, they have a seat that they can sit down in, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. But people also left food outside, too. So they left food outside to appease the fae.
We normally leave a plate outside.
Yeah.
When we do a ritual like this, so...
Yeah, we normally leave a plate outside for any wandering forest spirits, and there are many forest spirits where we are.
Yeah, whether it's forest spirits, or the fae, or outgarths, or elves, or...
Or random animals that wander by. We do make sure that whatever we leave out isn't
we're not leaving out, like,
toxic to
chocolate
animals.
cake and shit. Like, we always leave out... We have a lot of nature around us.
Yeah, we got a lot of nature around us.
Gotta keep an eye on that, make sure it's safe.
Yeah. So if you do leave food out, especially unattended, make sure that you're not leaving out something that any animals that were to wander by would be poisoned by. So that's whether you're leaving it inside or outside, definitely keep in mind that, because it's pretty cool to do these things as like a celebration, but don't, try not to harm anything.
Yeah.
So this was also a time of year that they would move livestock from the summer pastures to the winter pastures. And as you're getting into winter and you have to like really be careful with your food stores, you're thinking about which livestock you're going to keep alive over the winter and which livestock you're going to cull and either sell for money or to feed your family for the rest of the winter. So they would typically choose which livestock would be culled for food then. So this is definitely a feasty holiday, but this is more of like an at-home feast rather than like a traveling sort of feast like we talked about with the Lunasa episode, where you have like basically an outdoor potluck and everybody's hanging out and partying and eating. This one's a little bit more like chill and like reserved. You're like, hey, winter's coming. It's a low-key party time.
Yeah. Chill boy parties.
Chill boy parties. Yeah.
Poities. Yeah.
Poities for the chill boys. So, even though it doesn't seem like it, costumes and trick-or-treating also happened in the ancient times. And there's a ton of ideas for like where people think this came from.
You want full nightmares? All right. Look up any old-timey shit. Clowns are creepy. Old-timey clowns. Just fucking nightmare. Just the most nightmare stuff you've ever seen in your life. Look up old-timey children's costumes.
Oh, they're
Holy
horrifying.
heck,
Oh my god.
man. It is like worse than anything I have no horror movie I've seen has had a monster, creature, or like otherwisely spooked up ghost anywhere close to like a 12-year-old in the like 1800s being like, this was standard issue costume, and you're like, that's the shit out
They're
of
like, look, Ma, I'm a clown. And you're just like,
Lovecraft's nightmares. Yeah. Oh,
Ooh,
so
boy.
creepy. Look up old-timey costumes. Those are a bloody nightmare.
Yes, yes. So there's like a ton of different origin stories for why people use costumes or why people go door-to-door trick-or-treating nowadays. But I'm going to really kind of simplify that because I could do a whole episode on just that.
Yeah.
And,
and it's like a great many things. It's one of those, like, I heard that we started trick-or-treating because of this.
Yeah.
Or I heard that we started trick-or-treating because of that. And because of the thising and thating, there's not a lot of 100% answers.
Yeah.
On a
Well,
lot of
like
this
we've
stuff,
talked about in most episodes, like there's not, the further back you go, the less information there is.
Yeah.
And that's not because things didn't exist, but just because it's hard to preserve stuff over time like that.
Yeah.
I think that people will be thinking the same thing about us right now.
They're gonna be so
like a
confused
couple
about what
hundred
the
years
stuff
ago.
that's going on with us right now. Yeah.
They're gonna be very confused.
They're gonna be like, why were these guys all stupid about a bunch of dumb stuff? And you're like, they were idiots, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Oftentimes when
Probably aliens helped them build it. You know? Trust me, they're gonna believe it was aliens.
Yeah. Oftentimes when I'm feeding the chickens, when I make bone broth, I put all the bones into like a crock pot, and I put them on slow cook for like 2 days, and then after that I like strain all the bones out. But the bones still have like, there's still like some meat on there, and it's cooked and it's like food safe and everything. So rather than just throw it in the trash, I give it to the chickens. And some of the bones are like soft enough that the chickens can just pick apart and eat the whole thing, and some of them they just pick the bits off. So there are inevitably some like bones that survive the chickens picking at it. And I often think about, like, I wonder what thousands of years in the future some archaeologist is going to think about the chicken coop, because like there's a ton of bones there. I want, like, that's just me feeding my animals in the most lazy way possible.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm not picking up these bones afterwards. I'm just putting more hay on top. So it's just becoming part of the earth. And I often wonder, like, I wonder if they think there's going to be, like, animal sacrifices.
Yeah, right.
Or you know, something like
or
that.
Not even in hundreds of years. I mean, it could easily be one of those things where it's just like, hey, man, why is there a pile of bones in that cage? You're like, I'm feeding it to my chickens. And they're like, that's maybe not a better answer. Right? Because, like, normies don't know how, like, raising chickens and shit works. So, a lot of people don't want to see how the sausage is made for
well, and chickens will eat basically everything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're dinosaurs.
Yeah,
100%.
ours don't eat mice, but there are some chickens that will just, like, eat whole mice.
Yeah, yet. Ours don't eat mice yet. If the mice fuck with the chickens enough, they will.
That is
Our
true.
roosters are huge.
Well, one rooster is huge.
One of them is huge.
And one of them is tiny.
But very vicious, more vicious.
I don't know about vicious.
He-
But he
well, he
does
thinks
have
he's-
cute
he
little
thinks
alpaca
he's-
legs.
The most gangster chicken.
He does think
He's just like, what's up? And you're like, you are the size of a football, dog. Come at me.
He's not the smallest chicken, but he is...
He's the smallest rooster we've had.
The smallest rooster we'll probably ever have, and he's so sweet.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And when he gets cranky, I pick him up and hold him and wander around the yard while I do stuff with him underneath my arm, and he hates it. And then before I put him down, I give him like chicken scratch, so like the thing, like chicken candy, like the thing they want the most. And he is so angry, but he like begrudgingly eats it. He's just like looking at me like, I don't want to eat this, but I have to eat this.
But it's delicious, so I'm going to. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so costumes and trick-or-treating. There's tons and tons of information about origins out there, and we're going to talk about some real basic stuff. I'm not going to go super deep into it. So if you're hearing this, or really any of the other origin stuff that we're kind of talking about here, there's a ton to cover, and I could spend an entire episode just doing one thing. So I'm just kind of trying to like shrink this down so that as time goes on, we can talk about things more in depth. depth. Also, I am only one person, and researching this stuff takes a very long time.
Yeah.
So,
well, and if you have like a different origin story or like you've heard it differently, tell us in the comments.
oh yeah,
Go to
absolutely.
the comments and tell
I
us.
would absolutely love to hear what you think your origin stories are. After our Persephone episode, one of our patrons told us what her Persephone abduction story that she heard was, and it was fascinating.
Totally
I
different.
really, really love to hear that kind of stuff. So if you do have different origins for this kind of stuff, please let us know. And as always, if we're pronouncing anything wrong, please also let us know. I am one person doing research, trying to figure out how Google says something should be said, and that's not a very easy task. So anyways, costumes and trick-or-treating. So originally, people would go door to door singing or telling jokes or reciting verses, so like poetry or limericks or that sort of thing. And they would do that in exchange for food or drinks or candy. Think of it like fall wassailing, because wassailing, you're basically going door to door singing in exchange for treats, but you're singing
everybody
carols.
keeps saying that it's in exchange for treats, but the way that I've always looked at it is a bunch of strangers just walked up to your door and started singing at you, and you were paying them in booze to shut the fuck up and go away.
That's basically what it is.
Which is the way that I've always, which for wassailing doesn't make any sense because it's like everybody wants to hear it, but for trick or treating, very makes sense, right? Where you're just like, trick or treat, let me tell you some jokes, and you're like, listen, if I give you candy, would you maybe not? Because I have stuff to do. It's a Tuesday, leave please.
So that's sort of the trick or treating part, but also it may have partially grown out of a custom where in order, because all the dead are wandering or faffing about or wandering around this time of year, looking for something to haunt or to hang out at or just whatever. So people would try to basically fool the dead or fool the fae in order to protect themselves from them. Because if you were just like walking home from work or whatever, and some spirit saw you and was like, hey, that looks like a person I should follow, then that spirit, even though has no ties to you, could follow you and then haunt you and then cause your family harm. I mean, I guess they could also cause your family not harm.
They could
like
haunt
the
you with
opposite of
luck.
harm. Yeah, they could haunt you with luck. They could haunt you with, like, I don't know, good tidings or something.
Sweet 80s vibes.
Sweet
1780s vibes.
Sweet 1780s vibes.
Yeah, right?
So people would try to fool the dead or sort of like hide from them, right? So they would dress up. They would dress up as something other than who they were. They would sometimes wear their own clothes inside out. This was primarily something that started if you were out after dark, because spirits daytime, not so much. Spirits nighttime, definitely,
Yeah,
right?
of course, yeah.
So
Nighttime,
when you
always
sort
more
of take
spooky.
these things together, you've got roving bands of people who are like going around telling jokes and singing songs, who are dressed up all crazy like to fool the dead, and you're supposed to give them a treat. Now, eventually this sort of morphed into a situation where it was like people in costumes, and as time went on, it became more oriented to kids in costumes, because what kid doesn't want a costume? And it would be the trick or treat thing is they would get to the door, and the kids would ask the homeowner trick or treat, and the person that was the home would decide. So if the kids came up there, they're like trick or treat, or the homeowner is like trick or treat, the kids are like, I want a trick. They would come inside, and the people inside of this house would then try to guess what costume the kids were dressed up as. Probably something more interested in the horrific costume times of the 1800s and early 1900s.
What do you think I'm dressed up as? You're like, I don't know, sleep apnea? Dream demons? Paralysis monsters? I don't know. What is this? I don't want it in here anymore.
Yeah, and of course,
Can I change my answer to candy? Let me just give you candy.
And of course, if they said treat, they would, like, get a treat. It wasn't until later that, like, candy became the thing. It was originally, like, bread. Like, you would make, like little bread, or, like, soul cakes, which are kind of like a muffin, sort of. And then it became sort of like cookies, and then it's
pre-sugar
once
being cheap enough for
you get
everybody
to
have.
cookies, then candy's a very easy thing. But like in the old timey times, having sugar was like not easy, and especially having like refined sugar for these sort of things. I remember when
honestly trick or treating, and if they were giving out like good hearty stew, that wouldn't be a bad move.
I would trick or treat for beef stew.
I would trick or treat for stew. Yeah.
The last year we lived in the city, we gave our trick or treaters a choice of candy or top ramen.
Yeah.
And some of them chose both. It was great. People were very excited.
Yeah. One parent was like, get some candy for you, but like bring me some top ramen. Is that cool? And we're like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, and one kid, he must have been like 12. He was like, can I have 2 ramens? And I was like, absolutely. I don't.
Yeah.
Like, take 2.
We were the box of top ramen's, box of full size candy bars.
Yeah. And the kid was
house.
like, oh, thank you so much. My dad wanted to come out trick or treating really bad. This kid had like a younger sibling too. Like my dad wanted to come out trick or treating really bad, but like he broke his leg and he's on a crutch and it was like raining, so it was like he can't come trick or treating.
Yeah.
And he was like, and this ramen, points at chicken top ramen, is his favorite. So he brought him home top ramen. So whoever you are, Dad, who may or may not have been a lie. You're welcome for that top ramen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember when I was like much younger, I was reading the Boxcar book series, the Boxcar Children book series, and in that they talk about having like sugar, like white sugar, and it made cookies and they bought white flour and it made like star cookies, and they were like white cookies, and now that's just like every cookie you make is that color.
Yeah.
But like
now
prior to that,
colors back into cookies.
Yeah, now we're adding colors back in. So that was kind of like a big thing then. So it, you can definitely see how that kind of like came about and sort of like evolved into this situation. And of course, these trick or treaters needed something to light their way. So you know what they did?
Bonfires.
No.
Every 20 feet from here until the end of the earth.
No, that's definitely not a great idea. No, they carved jack-o'-lanterns. And they carried them around with them. But they weren't jack-o'-lanterns. They originally carved turnips and beets with little faces, and then put like a small candle in them. And they carried those around whilst they
That's significantly more impressive, but also sadder. I want nightmare 18th century children to be carrying around full-size pumpkins.
Well...
Big pumpkins.
I mean, really, it was kind of like they carved whatever they could,
like,
right? So they would carve, like pumpkins and gourds and stuff, but, like, in the areas where this stuff was common, like, you had a lot of turnips and beets. But now, I really want to get, like, a beet from the store and carve it. Like, we had a friend a couple of years ago carve a pineapple, which is really cool.
Beets or turnips, and then, like, when you hang them, they turn into, like, shrunken heads.
Yeah, that would be really dope.
Or
I'm
whatever.
Totally into that.
Yeah, we'll look up some stuff and then pick one up tomorrow when we go to the store.
And they were generally carved like faces, and the idea behind that is that the faces either A, scared off evil entities, because remember, they're roaming the night, and we are wandering around and reciting limericks and singing songs, probably drunkenly, whilst we wear costumes or our clothes inside out while we go door to door.
Unless they're kids, then they're probably not drunk.
I mean, maybe this was the old times.
Old times were weird.
Now, they also may have represented the souls of supernatural entities. So, like, particularly if you had them, like, in your home on a windowsill, maybe you're sort of lighting the way for, Great Aunt Morgana to come back and hang out.
Aunt Edna's pumpkin.
Yeah. And also, some people think that the idea behind doing these mimicked the lights that would appear in the peat bogs in the areas in the UK where that's sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Now, that's not just peat bogs that happens in. Kind of any swampy area has those, like, mysterious lights that are like... Lightning. Yeah, that are like some sort of form of science. I don't know what it is.
That's fine. That's fine.
It's mysterious lights. Every time I think of that, I think of Lord of the Rings. So I can't handle it because I'm just like, there's dead elves down there. Yeah, man. There's a part where they go through the dead marshes, and when they go through...
Is that in the movies?
Yes, it is. It's the part where there's like the dead people underwater. And the dead people try to pull them in.
That, no.
Yeah, yep. The dead marshes. There's dead elves and dead men under there. It was a huge battle. Nobody really won. It was that kind of thing.
I mean, that's maybe, I don't know. I don't remember the Lord of the Rings that well.
Blasphemy!
All right. That's right. Instead of whatever 4 books, I've got however many hundreds and thousands of hours of Star Trek locked up in here, serving no purpose whatsoever.
There's many more than 4 books, but that's okay. It's not a divorceable offense.
Yeah, 4 books,
Yet.
5 books, however many books you got.
All the books.
Is it 9 books?
We're not gonna do those.
Some more Star Trek books.
I'm sure there are. That's fine. That's fine. Now, as we said before, Halloween was kind of like Samhain was kind of like a chill event. Most people just sort of like either went around fall wassailing, or they stayed at home and hung out. And for those people that stayed at home and hung out, divination was a very, very popular thing to do for this particular holiday. You know, you think about it, like the weather's getting cold, it's kind of inclement, maybe it's raining, maybe it's not. Either way, maybe you don't really want to be outside. And divination, like, why not? Like, you're basically locked in a house with a bunch of people. Why not make it weird?
Yeah.
So the most common forms of divination stuff tied to Samhain were really about marriage, like who you're going to marry, and death, when you're going to die, or things that are going to happen in the future. So like generally between now and the next Samhain, so in the next year. And some of the common things have to do with food stuff. So it's just after harvest, we've still got a bunch of food. We're kind of getting willy-nilly with it. So we're going to do some apple bobbing. Now, apple bobbing kind of goes in 2 different forks here. Apple bobbing kind of goes one where it's like you put the apples in the tub, and then whoever catches the apple with their teeth is the first person to marry. Now, if you don't have a tub of apples, you put an apple on a stick, and you hang that from the ceiling. And then you try to catch that apple also with your teeth, but only one apple for the whole group of people. And whoever catches that apple is the first one to marry.
Yeah.
Not very COVID safe.
Have you ever bobbed for apples?
I have. That's also not very plague safe.
Nah, I mean, whatever. Who fucking cares about that, right? But, I mean, the act of bobbing for apples all on its own is a fucking nightmare.
It's awful.
Yeah,
the
it's
best
not
thing
easy.
you can do is hope to maybe snatch, like, a stem in your teeth.
Yeah.
That's
It's not easy. I've never been particularly... I mean, I've only done it a few times as a kid. But...
Yeah, same. I am certainly not gifted at bobbing for apples. Now, another thing that you could do with apples, whether or not you bobbed for them or just had them around, is you could place the apple underneath your pillow, and that night you would dream about who you would
Wake
marry.
up with a crick in your neck because you have a fucking apple under your pillow.
A whole apple.
Yeah, right?
You could also peel that apple and then throw those peels on the ground, and then whatever like letter those form would be the initial of the person that you would marry. You can kind of see there's like a theme here because, you know, back in the old times, that was a very important thing. What else are you going to talk about? You don't have TV.
Yeah.
You don't have Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Most people didn't read. So, yeah. Another really popular one that I thought was really cool and actually pops up in a variety of different modern celebrations, but not necessarily about Halloween, is baking bread or a cake and putting small toys in it.
Yep.
So you would do that and you would place small toys or coins or, you know, whatever kind of a symbol was. So like a single
you got
almond
the ball of nails
or a
cake.
Gross.
It's just a ball of nails inside of some cake.
And they're like, that one means death.
Yeah. You're not going to make it...
They're like, I think you're going to get tetanus within the year. So you would bake bread or a cake, and then you would put small toys or coins or whatever the business is, and then you would bake it. And then after that, people would be given the slices at random, and whatever you got would signify what would happen to you during the next year. So if it was like coin, you would come into some money. If it was like a ball of nails, tetanus. If it was like a tiny plastic baby, like those ones that you get at baby showers where they put them into ice cubes and then you have to carry it around like it's some sort of fun thing, then you would have a baby within the year.
Oh yeah, people do that? I don't know. The only baby I can think, like baby toy in a thing that I can think of is in those Mardi Gras, those cakes, what with baby in.
Yeah, that's it's not a direct descendant of this, but the idea behind it is the descendant. And that one
similar,
is like the person who gets the baby is like the good luck one.
Yeah.
But no. Like at baby showers, like a lot of people will take these stupid little plastic babies and put them into and freeze them in like ice cube trays, and then you have to carry the baby around until the ice cube melts, and whoever has the ice cube that melts first, they get to say, "Ah, my water broke," and then they get some sort of a prize. Baby showers are very strange. We'll probably cover like pagan stuff
Weird
like
pagan
that later.
Baby showers.
That's not necessarily a pagan thing. That's just a thing that I've been
sure.
to. I've got a lot of coworkers that have had babies. So that's one that you can do. That's one that I've always thought about doing, like baking stuff into bread. And I just never end up doing it. In the before times, we would always have a loaf of bread that I call festival bread, and it's like braided and it's pretty, and you just sort of like pull off pieces and eat them. Like, not like monkey bread, but thinking about that now, as we're all still wearing masks, is like a little bit of a horrifying idea.
Well, now you do it, but like in a muffin tin.
Yeah.
So there's individual muffins, so you just have one that you get to pull apart yourself,
Yeah. So that's one that I always think about doing and then always completely forget about doing until it's too late.
Yeah.
And then there's also oomancy. Do you know what oomancy is?
No.
Oomancy.
I mean, my guess would be it's the raising of ooze. Is it cow necromancy?
No. But it is a barnyard animal.
There you go.
Yeah, so oomancy is the practice of doing divination by using eggs. And there's a variety of different ways that you could do it, but the common one that ties to Samhain is cracking an egg into a glass of water. And then traditionally you would see whatever shape the letter looked like, and that would be the initial of the person you would marry. However, as time went on, it became more common to just look at the shapes to determine the future. Just kind of like how you would do tea leaves.
Yeah.
So you just like crack that egg in there, and then the egg white gets all like, woo! And then you use that as your divination tool. Which is actually super fun. I find that one's a really interesting one.
That is interesting, yeah.
Yeah, and you could also do it in broth. That way you can now eat the egg. So that you're not just, like, wasting an egg.
You shoot that egg back, bro. Get gains, dog.
Ooh, no, I am definitely not going to drink a raw egg.
It's so gross, man.
That's so gross.
Right? Oh, yeah.
That's
weird,
so gross.
It's like weird 90s, early 2000s, like... I'm gonna crack 3 eggs into this cup, shoot them back before I lift weights. Like, dog. I mean, maybe people still do that. I don't know. Nowadays, I feel like everybody's on the protein powder craze, but yeah, it's gross. Raw eggs are fucking gross. I have definitely shot back a fair few raw eggs in my day, and they're every one of them's gross. Honestly, I barely like cooked eggs.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
And you also don't like like oysters.
I don't want a runny yolk in an egg.
And you don't like raw oysters, and you don't like undercooked eggs. They have to be like over hard for you.
I'm not pro fucking gross slimy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gross slimy chicken butt stuff. I don't need that, bro.
Yeah. So if you want to do some oomancy, then just like find yourself a tea leaf reading dictionary, just Google it, and then you can kind of use that as your symbols. And of course, much like other things of divination, sometimes, like a bird in there means whatever the bird says in the tea leaf dictionary, but sometimes it's just like, hey, you're going to see a bird. And that's it, right?
Likely story, so...
Yeah. There's also bonfires. So Halloween is kind of the sister celebration to Beltane. So a lot of the things that happen in Beltane are kind of like Halloween, but the opposite, right? So in Beltane, there's a lot of bonfire stuff, a lot of jumping through bonfires for purifying and protection to banish evil, and you really see the same thing here in Samhain as well. So bonfires are very common during this holiday, and people would also leap through them to protect themselves, their family, their cattle. Sometimes they would make 2 separate bonfires, and then they would walk through them, because jumping over fire is not something that everybody wants to or should do.
That's fair.
And as always, be fire safe.
Yeah, seriously.
There's your other drinking game bit.
Yeah, the fucking... All right, I guess we'll do the bonfire thing. Have a fire extinguisher always with you for the bonfire. Have the right fire extinguisher also. Jesus Christ, you're an adult. Figure it out. But also, make sure that you're doing it like there's not a big tree above you, that you have the necessary stuff around you to be safe. Don't start a big old bonfire and then go inside of the house and let it just sit there. Like,
Yeah.
you know, be safe. When you're done with it, put it out safely. Like, make sure that it's, like, fully smoted and whatnot.
Yeah, also, maybe don't jump over one. Like...
Yeah, you don't need to do that.
Yeah, you definitely don't need to do that.
It makes real funny YouTube videos when people fall into bonfires because they're being idiots. But
we don't wish any of that on our dear listeners.
I don't want anybody to do that at all, but I'm definitely going to laugh at the dumb ones about it. So, yeah. Just cope with that.
And it wasn't just bonfires, but fire is sort of sacred to this holiday because, as we talked about, this is sort of like the dying of summer. And when you think about it, like, fire is representative of the sun here and warmth and everything, and so that kind of like ties in. And some homes would extinguish their own hearth fire because generally in the old-timey times you always had a hearth fire going because you basically always had to have one going. And then you would prior to Samhain, you would like extinguish the hearth fire, and then there would be a communal bonfire later that night, and you would bring home a flamey torch from the communal bonfire, and then you would relight your hearth fire from that torch.
Yeah.
And then you would just sort of like go about your day. But some people also would take candles and they would have those burning all night so that they can purify and protect and banish evil, but also to lead the good spirits home because sort of like a signal fire, they would know where you are if you've got a candle in the window. And I do not recommend leaving a candle lit all night. Like we just said, don't leave flames unattended.
If you want to have a candle lit all night, get a robot candle.
Yeah,
those
robot candles, totally fine.
Yeah.
An image of a candle, also totally fine.
That's fair, yeah.
Candle screensaver on your computer, also
this
fine.
Flickery light up here behind me, that's just an LED light that screws into a regular like light bulb holder, flickers like a fire. Mm-hmm. Like, do that shit. Be fire safe, man.
We have those in sconces all around the house that we just kind of always leave on. So it's always, like, a little bit being by candlelight. It's very cool. Also, candles are expensive.
Yeah. They are.
Yeah, no, it's not all about fire either. On a particular island chain in Scotland, I learned that people would wade out into the ocean until they were waist deep on Samhain night. And then they would pour a pint of ale into the water and ask the Shoni, which is a local sea god, for blessings for Halloween. So maybe also don't get swept away by the ocean. But I thought that was a pretty cool one if you're a water witch of sorts and you are near a body of water. That is certainly something that you can do.
If you can do it safely, yes.
If you can do it safely, yeah. And then lastly, a lot of people talk about how Samhain is Witches' New Year. There's a lot of weird gatekeeping about this day. Like, oh, you dedicate yourself to your craft on Samhain and you have to, like, spend a year maybe, and then, like, next Samhain you're fully a witch. There is none of that. Unless you want to follow that. Yeah. So, Witches' New Year, I guess it could be a thing. Really, I think that has to do with some areas considered this to be a New Year's festival. That is, that they considered that their year began when winter began, and the end of harvest was the end of basically their year. And there's little historical evidence for this, really. But in some places, it was also called New Year's. And this can certainly make sense, because the harvest is over. If you're a really agricultural community, that is, you spend most of your year dealing with the harvest and with crops. So having that harvest be done is like a momentous occasion and is really sort of the end of a cycle. So, like, it makes sense for it to be a new year, but the idea behind it being Witches' New Year is really primarily a more modern marketing sort of thing to get you to, like, buy a thing or watch a specific movie or get the spoopy vibes from something spoopy. You know, I don't know where that came from in, like, modern culture, but I bet you it was some sort of sting in a movie where they're like, oh, it's creepy. It must be the witch. And they're like, oh, the witch? And they're like, yes, Halloween night is Witch's New Year and they're going to sacrifice your child that night, or something equally ridiculous. So I imagine that that's probably where that comes from. However,
yeah, I've literally never heard of this Witch's New Year
if you want to
shit
celebrate it as Witch's New Year, go for it. But don't let anybody gatekeep you or shame you into thinking
Yeah.
that you have to, or that you need to, or that
Yeah.
there's something else tied to it. And if you want to hear more about us, rant about toxic online gatekeeping behaviors in the pagan community, we did an episode that's toxic internet witchcraft. I don't remember which episode number that is exactly, but it's a fairly recent one from this one, and we talk a lot about that sort of thing. So you do you, witches and heathens.
Don't, I mean, like, it's fine if you want to do a specific thing, but, like, don't make other people do that thing. Don't gatekeep, and don't let gatekeepers put you down.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, how we celebrate. So, we celebrate in a lot of ways. So, Halloween has always been my favorite holiday. Growing up as a kid, my family went way into Halloween. I have a lot of costuming background, so I like making costumes, and I usually have a costume for work, because work usually does not want to dress up as the same thing that I want to dress up as, so I usually have 2 costumes that I do for that. I do this year as well. One costume is going to be Queen Frostine from Candyland. That's my work costume, and then my non-work costume is sort of like a 1920s rich lady. Because I went to a costume party that was a 1920s themed murder mystery, so I'm gonna keep using that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do costumes. We also do the Sabbath, where we invite friends and family to kind of hang out and do crafts and sort of celebrate the season.
Pumpkin carving, food, listen to music. We only watch horror movies with the exception of Star Trek and wrestling. But we only watch horror
for the whole
movies
month of October.
For the month of October. So we've been watching horror movies this whole time. Let's see what else. Yeah, so when we do our ritual, because Julie and I celebrate in different ways, practice in different ways, however you want to say it. So normally she starts and like does her thing, and then I do my thing, Alpha Blot, in the middle, and then she finishes her thing up to sort of wrap it all up. And we have like a fire, and whatever, kind of do whatever, and then just kind of have friends and family over until everybody leaves, and then it's like put out the fire, clean up the house, clean everything up, go to bed.
Yeah.
Wake up the next day.
So we do feasts. We leave out offerings to the ancestors, to the Fae. We like to do sort of crafts and hang out with that. But we really kind of make Samhain into less of a night, more of a season.
Yeah.
And we sort of incorporate that stuff further. We dabble a little bit in some Day of the Dead kind of stuff. We dabble a little bit in a variety of different faiths and cultures and beliefs and practices. So we sort of incorporate all of those things together. And I mean, the cool thing about living in this house that we live in, where we're like kind of out in the middle of the woods and we have a cabin and it's weird, and is we just sort of leave up our decorations year round. Yeah. So we're just kind of like Halloween time all the time.
Yeah, there's always Halloween decorations up. Technically, we still have some Christmas ornaments up. Oh, but they're like antlers, so I don't know that that's super. They were just bells. Cool. They're like cool bell and antler ornaments that I found. So we have those up. We still have like all of our, you can't see it in any of the video, but we have all of our Chinese New Year lanterns, the red lanterns up in the house still. This like spider web thing that you can kind of see barely ducking into view on the video behind us. We have on like every single window, and it's like this. It's just like a cobweb thing that we got pack that we got on Amazon. Like a decoration pack. Yeah, we always kind of vaguely have like every holiday represented somewhere in the house. Gourds up and about, and skulls. There's a lot of skulls. There's a lot of skulls in our house.
Yeah, and we kind of milk Halloween stuff all the way up into like Thanksgiving, basically.
Yeah, Halloween's pretty much like October 1st through Thanksgiving. Really,
well, it's really when
we get back from the Scottish games.
Yeah. Like mid-August all the way through like November. So we really kind of make it like a season, but we do a lot of work with the Fae, and this is kind of a good time for that. As well. So we do that. Now, one of the things that we do with our rituals is we usually always have a fire. It gets kind of cold out here at night, so we usually always have a fire that everybody sort of stands around for the ritual. And we usually do manifesting or releasing type of spells, and Samhain is more of a releasing type of spell, or type of season. So we ask that when people come to our rituals that they can, if they want, they can bring something to release from their lives.
Yeah.
And that is sort of like another activity. Sometimes people will bring things that are like letters they want to burn. We've had people bring small pieces of art.
Yeah.
That no longer
always
serve
like
them.
Safe
Always
to
stuff
burn.
that's okay to burn.
Yeah, it's not
you.
like plastic.
And we have like
tire,
little pieces of
something.
paper, so that's another
Yeah.
thing that we do.
Yeah.
And it's also a really good time, really, for making wishes. So one of the things about New Year is you're letting go of the old, you're bringing in the new, and you can really incorporate that into Samhain, whether you have chosen to celebrate it as like a witch's New Year or not. So we wrote a couple of spells, also for this, as per usual.
Yeah.
And the first of these is the Bay Leaf Wish spell. So the forest that we live in is like mostly redwood and bay trees. So
yeah, it's
we
redwood
have
in California Bay.
ton of bay. So much bay. It smells fantastic when it rains here.
Yeah.
And it is raining right now. So for this one, you can use a fresh bay leaf off a tree if you have that capability, or you can just use the bay leaves that you buy at the store.
Yeah.
There's really no big difference here. And this is a bay leaf wish spell. So you really only need two things for this spell. That's the beauty of this spell. It's very simple. You need a bay leaf and you need something to write with. We usually use a Sharpie, but you could use pretty much anything that would write on a leaf.
Metallic Sharpies, very cool on the leaves.
Yeah, metallic Sharpies, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So think about what you want to wish for, whether that's getting rid of a bad habit or starting a new venture, but it should be something that you're really willing to do the work to see it happen and manifest. That's sort of the thing about wish spells and that sort of thing, is you not only want to do the spell, but the spell really acts as a booster for your own actions. So like if you really want to wish for, losing a bunch of weight or getting a new job or something like that, you need to also do the work. It doesn't mean that you're not going to do a spell and something's going to happen that helps with that intention, but it's going to be much more beneficial for you and easier to come by if you're also helping it along by doing things yourself. So write your wish down on the bay leaf, and then you're going to say a little thing. And of course, if you are closeted and saying something out loud doesn't really work very well, or you're just not like an out loud speaking kind of witch, it's totally fine. You can say this in your mind space. So as you write this on the bay leaf, say, wishes are words and my words are reality. You can say it once. You can repeat it as many times as you want. And then once you are done and you feel like you've sort of charged that bay leaf with your intention, you can burn it. You can bury it. You can cast it into a body of water, like a river or an ocean. Or you can also throw that thing in the trash to activate the spell. There's no reason that you have to go out somewhere and do a thing when you have trash that just comes to be picked up. So as you get rid of the bay leaf, say the charm again. Wishes are words and my words are reality. And focus on the wish coming true, and not just the act of it coming true, but how you are going to work to make it come true and how it'll impact you when it does, how you'll feel about that particular spell. So when that's sort of a key to charging things with intention, is not just think about your end goal or repeat that in your mind, but imagine all of the facets of that. Imagine you working towards your end goal. Imagine how you're going to feel when it works. Imagine how it's going to affect your life. Imagine how it's going to change you. Imagine all of those things in whatever way that works best for you. There are some people that don't have that seeing in their mind's eye sort of thing, but you can still think about things. You just don't necessarily see pictures. Yeah, how does it make you feel? That sort of thing. Yeah. So that is a bay leaf wish spell.
Yeah, and we've done that before for ritual, where we've just collected a bunch of bay leaves and dried them so they're a little bit easier to write on, and then just brought out a bunch of Sharpies and let people write wishes on bay leaves. Mm-hmm. you know?
And then cast them into the fire.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
that's always a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's super simple. It's very low-key. I love it. Now, the other spell that we have is for the Fae. So this is an attraction spell for the Fae. And this one, you'll need some string, thread, ribbon, yarn, whatever you want. You know, you're gonna be tying it about. So, you know, maybe don't pick something like super odd, but something like that. So you're also going to want some wrapped assorted candy. Halloween candy is perfect for this. And if you've been looking for an excuse to buy some Halloween candy, I'm looking at you,
magic.
Anonymous listener.
Yeah. You need it
Go
for
buy
magic.
yourself some Halloween candy. Again, you're with the caveat of if you have something that's out, make sure that you're not going to be poisoning any sort of animal that is in your space. But also maybe keep an eye out for ants. So if it looks like it may attract ants, maybe pick a different candy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to take your cord and you're going to tie a loop on one end. It doesn't have to be a very big loop, just a loop. And then you're going to tie each candy piece onto the length of your cord, leaving a bit of space between each candy, similar to how you would see a rope ladder. And these directions are purposely vague here because your little candy rope ladder can look however you want. You want to use 2 strings? Go for it. You want to use 1 string? That's fine too. You want to make decorative macrame knots around your candy? Go for it.
Yeah.
You want to just like tie it as easily and simply as you can? That's totally fine. We're not judging anybody here.
Sexy yarn shibari Halloween candy. I'm just putting it out there. Make it weird.
So, once you've got all of your candy on there, and you can use as many or as few pieces as you want. That is the beauty of this spell, and really most of the spells we try to write is we try to make them as easy to use and universal
done,
as
yeah.
possible. Because it's not, for us, we've found it's not the act of creating a large and elaborate ritual, although that is fun in its own right. But there's a lot of small magic bits that can be done where you don't have to have a lot of prep work for it, and that makes it a lot easier and accessible for people. So you've got your candy. It's got a loop on it. Now you're going to hang that loop with the candy on it in your personal space somewhere, however you want, wherever you want, in whatever way you want. Just hang that
in the middle
candy.
of the room.
like a fly tape.
Yeah.
So hang the candy loop in your personal space and say, flittering and hovering. Ooh boy.
Yeah, flittering and hovering is difficult to say.
That was I was like thinking like I'm doing good. I haven't stumbled over any words.
Yeah.
And then I thought that and immediately that happened. Okay. Anyway, flitting and hovering at the edge of my vision, Fae folk, as you enjoy this sweet treat, let our friendship come to fruition. Merry will we always meet. And you can repeat it again as many times as you want.
Yeah.
And leave this up for as long as you like. You may also want to refresh the spell with new candy from time to time to keep the Fae interested. But trust me, they love candy, they love shiny objects, and they also love things they can play on.
Yeah.
So this is a great way to attract Fae into your life if you're looking to kind of figure out how to work with them, especially if you've listened to our other podcast, Working with the Fae, and want to know more. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so it's that time.
Next up, correspondences.
It's list reading time.
Yeah, let's read them.
All right, so things that have a correspondence for Samhain. Now, again, we're really only going over the highlights of these in this podcast. If you want the full list, that is accessible on our Book of Shadows, which you can get through our Patreon.
Yep, the Horn and Cauldron podcast tier on our Patreon. Join the Horn and Cauldron podcast coven.
And if you have specific questions, definitely hit us up either in the comments on the YouTube video, by email on our website, or on any of our social media channels.
Yeah,
we're happy to answer any questions you may have about correspondences.
Totally.
So animals that are associated with Samhain are bats and cats and werewolves. Think of Halloween-y animals.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Same thing really for all of these, but for colors also. So colors associated with Samhain would be black, green, orange, and purple.
Yeah. All the colors that I do tie-dye with.
That's true.
Because I primarily do Halloween-y colors with tie-dye.
Yeah.
It's going to be so hard to do Christmas stuff, and we need to start doing that, like this time.
Or something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so rocks that are associated with Samhain would be amber, amethyst, moonstone, obsidian, selenite, all of those kind of like black ones, or like orange ones, or like purple ones. You guys seeing a theme here?
Yeah.
As for plants, bay is actually associated with Samhain, as well as broom, which is not necessarily an item, but also the item the broom is. But most old-timey brooms come from a plant called broom.
Yeah.
So that is very heavily associated with Samhain. It's actually a fairly invasive species in North America. So if you find some broom, cut it down, turn it into an actual
Make it into a real broom.
Yeah. Cinnamon is also associated with this holiday, as well as foxglove, sage, straw flowers, and yarrow. As for food, really, seasonal foods is kind of the thing here. So in particular, you're looking at apples. You're looking at Halloween candy. You're looking for corn, any sort of grains. Persimmons are a bit early for the season, but they still definitely work. Pomegranates, pork, pumpkin and squashes and gourds and all of that other sort of stuff. As for drinks, if you're going to drink something, why not drink it mulled? Add some spices.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and some deities that are particularly associated with Samhain would be Hades, Hecate, Hel, Ishtar, Lilith, Loki, Morrigan, Osiris, Persephone, and really any deity that's associated with the underworld or death or the harvest. And that's our correspondences.
That's all the correspondences. Yeah. So this has and that has been Samhain 101.
That's right.
Yeah,
Samhain
that's
101.
a little bit about Samhain. What do you do for Samhain? If you're listening to this on YouTube,
Tell us.
comment below. Tell us what you do for Samhain. Or do you just do Halloween? Or do you like horror movies? Super double secret question. What's your favorite horror movie? Mine's As Above, So Below. I talk about it all the fucking time.
Oof, that's so tough.
Yeah, it's not. As
It's
Above,
so
So Below
hard
is a
for me
perfect
to
horror
try
movie.
to decide. First thing that popped into my head, The Fog, the old version from the 70s.
That's fair. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
As Above, So Below, and then it's like Evil Dead.
Oof, yeah.
Or honestly anything with any of the horror movies with him in it.
Any of the Bruce
The
Campbell,
Sam Raimi, Bruce
ones,
Campbell
yeah.
horror movies, they're all so flippin' good. You know,
Yeah.
I mean the remake is good, but it's not the same, dude.
I also
Bruce
adore
Campbell.
the original Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one with the little pumpkin head kid, that's a really good one.
Oh, Trick or Treat.
Trick or Treat is a really good one. My Bloody Valentine is good.
Yeah, that one's more of a Valentine's Day.
That is a
one.
Valentine's Day
We
horror movie,
also
but still.
recently watched Witches of Eastwick, and while not technically a horror movie, it has a ton of witchy overtones, and is something that I watched a lot as a kid, and as an adult watching this, I was like, my parents let me watch this?
Yeah.
It was very enjoyable. Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer and Cher and Susan Sarandon.
And Susan Sarandon, yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good
so
one. Jack
lots
Nicholson is
wild.
so hammy. So hammy.
So
in it.
hammy.
Yeah.
All
right.
ham.
So, next time, our next one is on modern Odinism.
Yeah.
So,
And we're going to be focusing on sort of everyday ways to
celebrate, practice.
practice.
We're going to talk about resources that I found that are super helpful, books and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So we're just going to kind of talk about Odinism. And there's going to be a lot more of me interjecting what I've practiced and what I've found and, problems that I've ran into and things like that.
Yeah.
And then also sometime this year, when is it? In November?
Our 1 year
Our
anniversary,
1 year anniversary is coming up. I don't know when that is. And we're going to be doing a live show with Q&A. So
Yep.
prepare your questions.
And that's going to be in December.
Yeah.
So that's going to be December 5th or 6th. We have not decided whether we're doing Sunday or Monday on that yet. Bear with us.
Yeah.
Or if a day works better for you than another, let us know.
Yeah. And we'll just do it then, whatever.
We're
But
ultimately flexible.
yeah,
But
so
prepare
that's going to
your
be fun.
questions.
Prepare your questions. We're going to go live. It's probably going to be a longer one, but that's fine.
yeah. And if you're not sure if you can make it for the live stream, send in them questions.
Yeah, send them in early.
Yeah,
That's totally
go to
fine
our
also.
website, which is nerdjive.com, and you can contact us through there, of course, through our social media, by commenting on YouTube,
Yep.
and you can leave us us our questions. Leave us any questions you have for us there.
Yeah. So, I have been John Norgrove. This has been Julie Norgrove. This has been the Horn
And Cauldron
podcast. Thank you for watching. If you are listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to like this video, comment below, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and do all that kind of stuff. If you're listening to our podcast network, subscribe to us and leave us a review so we know that you're listening. And if you'd like to support more witchy content like this, you can support us over on Patreon by joining our Patreon, where you gain access to the Book of Shadows pages, which is going to have the full list of correspondences, the spells, and all the fun graphic stuff that I do for those, as well as access to a Discord server, so you have much more direct conversational access with us.
And a monthly hangout
chat.
And
monthly hangout chats. And you can also support us over on Etsy, where we have an Etsy shop where we sell like cool tie-dyed stuff.
As well as a variety of hand-dyed embroidery flosses and yarn. We're just getting into yarn. We're doing a lot of hand dyeing stuff and things like that. So that's fun, and that is Norgrove Enterprises on Etsy. But all the links again you can find on our website.
All the links are everywhere, so don't worry about that. Either way, we will catch you guys next time. Stay witchy, folks.
Yeah, and don't forget, breathe in self-confidence, breathe out self-doubt.
That's right. Bam.